Hello guys, welcome back. And today we are reading Requiem for a Loud, chapter 16. Because it's Sunday, and this is what I do every week. Well, not chapter 16, but Requiem for a Loud. But yeah, it's called Silver Lake. So, I hope this isn't too long, because I've had quite a busy day today. So, yeah. From the very moment he woke up, Lincoln knew he was sleeping on the tent he and Lenny had set up in their house backyard. Okay, yes, I remember. The sound of the wind blowing against the tent and the semi-darkness didn't confuse him nor scared him. He didn't also find strange that his feet were cold, since they'd been out of the blanket for most part of the night. And even though, judging by the light that was filtering from the outside, the day was promising to have a nice weather. The tent didn't offer much protection against the night cold. Only his feet had that problem, though all his upper body was comfortable and warm. It wasn't only because that part was indeed covered by the blanket, it was also because he was literally laying on top of his sister Luna, with his head resting on her chest, and his sister's arms embracing him over his shoulders. It had been a long night. They had cried a lot. They had expressed all the feelings they'd hidden deep inside of them, according to his watch. They had stayed awake until 3 in the morning. 3 a.m. Which meant they had cried all their fears, all their sadness, all their pain for almost 5 hours. When the weariness consumed all their energy and they ran out of tears, Luna laid down. Her arms didn't let go of her little brother, so she dragged him along, letting him rest atop her. What does that mean? 10 days ago, Lincoln might have found the situation a little awkward, but right then, he could only feel grateful for having sisters that loved him so much. The position reminded him of previous years, when he was a young little kid, and some of his older sisters would decide to have a nap with him. "Luna, do you remember that song you used to sing to me when I was a kid?" he had asked. "Yeah." "Yeah," she answered, stroking little locks of his hair. Do you think, could you?" He was afraid it would sound stupid, that it would make him look childish. He couldn't finish the question, but Luna understood him anyway, and it didn't even cross her mind to make fun of him. She simply started to sing him the same old song she'd sang him so many times before. She sang it, feeling Lincoln's chest moving with each breath. Until the movement was slow and steady. Only when her brother fell asleep, she allowed herself to surrender to her tiredness. They had both unburdened all they had been keeping inside, and even if Lincoln's idea had been to help his sister, the truth is that he needed it too. He hadn't realised how much he needed to be able to cry openly, to be able to mourn with anyone else for what was happening to him. For him, that night had also lifted a weight off his shoulders. He thought he heard the sound of some voices from very far away, so he carefully sat up next to his sister. She also started move a little and mumbled something. After yawning and stretching his arms, Lincoln checked the time on his wrist. Watch. Is it the same watch from that gender bent episode? Okay, I'm actually dumb. Adrian's watch. It was 9 o'clock. How could I forget? On Sunday morning. The rest of his sisters were probably having breakfast right now. "Luna, he called her, gently shaking her shoulder. His sister finally reacted, opening up her ears. Oh my eyes, I've got my glasses on, how am I struggling to read? She did seem to be a little confused for an instant, but her eyes quickly focused on Lincoln. She also sat up and stretched her arms, trying to fully wake herself. "Morning, bro," she said, getting close enough to give him a kiss on his cheek. "Sorry for waking you up." "No, it's okay," she assured him, flinching a little and taking a hand to a lower back. "Ouch, I guess you're not as lightweight as you used to be." "I think I know why I stopped taking naps with you." Whoa, whoa, whoa. Lincoln couldn't stop his cheeks from blushing. Whoa, whoa. To his sister's amusement. "Don't worry, Linky," she said, giggling. "What time is it anyway?" 9 in the morning. We should go and have some breakfast." He started to get up, but Luna grabbed him by his sleeve. He looked back to see what she wanted, but before he could react, his sister gave him yet another kiss on his right cheek. "Let's go, sweet child o' mine." "What?" she whispered, smiling at him as she stood up and opened the tent's entry. Hearing her speaking in lyrics was enough to plant a big smile on Lincoln's face. Luna stepped out of the tent and he stood up to follow her, but at the last second he remembered that he had left his bedroom's key inside Luna's guitar case to avoid losing it. After so many years without any kind of privacy, he was still having trouble getting used to having to carry a key. Once he took it and put it in one of his pockets, he walked out of the tent as well. The day, as he'd supposed, was incredibly nice. Only little strokes of white interrupted the radiant blue sky. Relatable. There was a small breeze that, with them being in their pyjamas only, was a little uncomfortable. But it wasn't that much of a problem. They crossed the backyard, heading to the kitchen's back door, regretting not having their shoes and walking barefoot on the wet grass. As he walked along his sister, Lincoln realized he felt different. He felt like he was having more energy. Yeah, that's because you went to sleep, Lincoln. You got rest." He noticed he was more optimist. He felt more alive. Probably because it's the morning. It was more than the sensation of knowing his sister was a bit better. It was more than feeling a great weight off his shoulder. It was more than just an emotional state. It was like his body had rested several weeks overnight. He thought such a dramatic change after only one night was really strange, but he was not going to complain. It had been a long time since he felt so good. "Have you thought what we're going to tell Lucy, Lola, Lana and Lisa if they wonder what we're doing?" asked Luna as they got nearer to the kitchen. No, actually," he said, moving a hand to his nape. "I guess we can, I don't know, improvise something." Luna turned around to flash him a smile. "We'll figure something out, although," she said, and her smile hesitated. "When are you planning on telling them girls? You got 4 of your sisters in the dark, Lincoln. I still believe they have the right to know the truth." "Lisa knows," he simply said. He was walking right behind his sister, so he bumped into her when she suddenly stopped. "Lisa?" she asked, raising her eyebrow, but when "She figured it out on her own," he answered. Luna seemed to be utterly surprised by the revelation. "Dude, the sun's in my eyes." She remained in silence for several seconds, with her gaze lost. Wow, I guess I should have seen that coming. But how did she tuck it? She asked, biting her lower lip. Oh shit, we got an essay. Lincoln sighed. Was it worth it telling Luna that their younger sister was looking for a cure for his disease? No, he couldn't do that to her. He couldn't give his older sister any kind of hope. What if Lisa didn't make it? His older sister was already suffering, like they never had so far in their lives. He felt and saw their pain, the burden of the situation, the agony of the resignation. They were just suffering so much, as if to give them the hope that it all might be avoided. If he gave them that hope and then took it from them, he would be causing them twice the tremendous pain. He himself preferred to pretend that Lisa wasn't working on anything, because not even he dared to believe that there was a chance that it might all turn out okay. It was too good to be true. He couldn't let himself be that naive. She's dealing this in her own way, he answered, avoiding Luna's eyes, fearing that his sister might see he wasn't being totally honest with her. I'll try to speak to her. For now, I think she needs some time on her own. I'll talk with them all soon. I know I can't keep them away from this for much longer. I promise you I'll tell them. If she noticed anything weird in Lincoln, Luna didn't let on. She simply nodded. Took a look at the kitchen's door to make sure that there was no one looking at them, and she gave him a tight hug. It's okay, brah. Just do it when you're ready. You know you can count with the rest of us for whatever you need, right? Of course, he assured her, hugging her too. And you know that anytime you want to talk, play, or just be with me, you got to ask, right? Yes, she said with a smile, breaking off the hug. It was clear that she didn't want to get too emotional and cry before breakfast. I know, let's just get inside, dude. They climbed those little steps before the kitchen back door, and Luna opened it up, going inside, followed close by her brother. Unfortunately, all their sisters were there already, so Lincoln knew they would have to come up with an excuse about why he slept in the tent with Luna. Ooh. Luckily, though, some small arguments were taking place right now between Lucy and Lynn and the twins. Maybe if they were quiet enough, they could... Icon! Lily crawled her way to her brother, babbling until she reached his legs, tugging his pyjama bottoms to get his attention. She did not only got Lincoln's attention, but also alerted the other 8 girls that Lincoln and Luna had just entered the kitchen in their pyjamas from the backyard. The fight ended abruptly. The few seconds of silence were overlasting for Lincoln, whom just waited for the surprise to pass, for his sisters to start their assault on him. Wait, what? And just as he predicted, 3 seconds after Lily caught everyone's attention and ruined Lincoln's chances of tiptoeing his way out, the twins, Lucy, Lynn and Luann gathered around him, and Luna, all of them speaking at the same time. Luann seemed barely worried, mostly interested in knowing where they had been. Lynn did look kind of worried about Lincoln, but he couldn't take her worry seriously because he was focusing more about the fact that she was wearing an apron and kitchen gloves. Lucy was asking with suspicion, while the twins had left their differences aside to complain about not having been invited to a secret party. Of course. Lincoln sighed. As his sisters kept throwing him questions, he had enough experience with this kind of chaos. So, he simply decided to stop trying to focus on what they were saying, and just ignore them until they settled down. He ducked and lifted Lily from the ground. She wasn't asking him where she'd been. She didn't demand to know where had he spent the night or why she wasn't invited. She was just happy to see him again. That's because she's a baby. And she showed it by grabbing some locks of his hair and playfully pulling them, causing him some pain. He let her play with his hair until his baby sister threatened to tear his scalp. He quickly gave her a little kiss on the tip of her nose, making her laugh and releasing her grip. "Lincoln, we're talking to you," complained Lana and Lola, getting their brother's attention. "Alright," he finally said, resigned, cradling his baby sister so she wouldn't be pulling his hair. "What were you saying?"
"We want to know where you've been,"
asked Lana, crossing her arms over her chest.
"And what was Luna doing with you?"
added Lola, putting her hands on her lips. "Oh, yeah, right," he started to say, trying to earn some time to come up with an excuse. "Well, you see..." He came up with many excuses in his head, each one more improbable and less credible than the last. His younger sisters were innocent and easily manipulable. For someone as sharp and perspective as Lincoln. Oh, yeah. But they were no fools. And when they were angry, not even the best excuse could convince them. They might even reject the truth. Fortunately, Luna saved his trouble. "Guys, it was my fault," she said, stepping forward. "I was really pissed off last night. So I sneaked out and made up Dad's tent in the backyard. I wanted to be alone, but Lincoln heard me and decided to bunk with me to cheer me up." The girls, with the exception of Laurie, Lenny, Lisa, and Lily, looked worried about Luna. The memory of what she'd done 2 nights prior was still fresh in their minds. Luann and Lynn, however, stared at Luna and Lincoln respectively, and with simple exchanges of looks, they understood that there was more on that story than they could say in front of their younger siblings. Their faces relaxed a lot. "Oh my."
"But why did you let him if you wanted to be alone?" asked
Lola. Luna smiled and put an arm over his shoulders. "He can be very convincing," she said in a whisper, closing her eyes and embracing him a little tighter. Lincoln saw his older sisters staring at them with an impossible mixture of sadness and joy, sympathy and resignation, and he also saw his younger sisters raising an eyebrow. The Rock. "Hey, Lynn, what gives with that apron?" he asked, in an obvious and poor attempt to change the subject. "Oh," she said, and Lincoln saw her freckled cheeks gaining colour. "Yeah, about that. She decided to cook you a special breakfast." "Oh wait, it's Lucy." "She decided to cook you a special breakfast," answered Lucy in her place, crossing her arms like she was reproaching her something. He couldn't remember ever seeing Lynn so flustered. She was staring at the floor and nervously playing with her fingers, not daring to look at him. The twins weren't particularly interested in that topic, so they sat at the kiddie table, where their breakfasts were also served. What happened to the kiddie table? I'm pretty sure now they all just sit in one big table now. As soon as they sat, they started to fight once again. Lincoln didn't know what to say to his sister. He looked at the countertop and saw a plate with what seemed to be a couple of little burned hotcakes. "Are those for me?" asked Lincoln, gently breaking away from Luna's hug and walking to the countertop. Yes, they are for you," said Lynn, ashamed, "but I think I left them on the fire for too long and they ended up a little burnt. You can give them to Charles if you want. She pointed at the dog that was eating on his plate on the floor. The animal turned around his head for a second after hearing his name, but then he jumped right back at his food. "I'm sure they'll be delicious," he assured her.
That's like super cute, Lynn,
said Lenny, smiling the way only she could, spreading joy. The compliments only served to embarrass Lynn even more, although behind her blush there was a shy smile hidden. "But why did you decide to make him a breakfast?"
But why did you decide to make him a breakfast?"
asked Lucy, still with her arms crossed over her chest.
"You never cooked before."
Lincoln, who had grabbed a plate and a glass of milk with the intention of going to the kiddie table to sit down and start to eat, stopped. Lynn was staring at Lucy, and she didn't seem to be ashamed or shy anymore. She just looked like when someone insinuated that she wasn't that good at some sport, or when she was losing in Monopoly. There's always a first time, right?
"And why did you only cook for Lincoln? You didn't even make hotcakes for yourself."
Well, that's because...
"Yes?"
Yes? It was hard to tell since she was wearing her kitchen gloves, but Lincoln was pretty sure that Lynn was clenching her fists. She looked like she was about to scream, but oddly enough, his older sister just sighed. Sigh. And her face earned a playful look. "You really think I'd test my cooking abilities on my own food? No way! That's why I have my little test dummy here, who will try them even if they give him a stomachache later." As she made fun of him, she closed her arms around his neck, trapping him in a classic wrestling grab. But that time, Lynn wasn't squeezing his neck, trying to keep him from breathing. Slyly, to not raise suspicion, she was gently grabbing him closer, in some kind of tender hug.
"Oh, a minute ago you said he could give them to Charles just because they're a little burn,"
Lucy remarked.
"But now you're implying that you don't really care whether Lincoln enjoys them or not. What's the truth, Lynn?"
Lincoln felt Lynn's arms, muscles tensing around his neck. "I'd love to have someone trying them so they can tell me the truth about how I did it. How did I did it? And I know Lincoln's the only one who would agree to do it," she softly explained, sounding too calm for Lincoln's taste. "It's the first time I ever did this, so I'm a bit nervous, and I don't really want to make him eat something he doesn't want. Does my explanation satisfy your curiosity, Luce?"
"But why?"
"That's enough, Lucy," said Laurie, finally intervening, putting a hand on Lucy's shoulder. "Does it bother you that Lynn cooked Lincoln's breakfast?"
"No, but..."
"Does it affect you somehow?"
"No."
"Then let them be, Lucy," she said with a smile. The little goth let out a big sigh.
Sigh.
Grabbed her breakfast and went straight to the kiddie table, sitting along Lisa, Lily and the twins. Lincoln also was about to follow her, but Lenny stopped him.
Hey, Linky, would you like to go with us to the other table?
She asked with a smile. Oh my. The rest of his older sisters were staring at him expectantly, holding their breaths as they waited for his answer. Lenny, however, was looking at him very calmly, with a smile that was just too sincere. Lenny was still a mystery for Lincoln. How much did she understand of what was going on? Was she conscious of what was actually going to happen? He thought he would need to ask Laurie for her opinion on the subject, to know what was really going on with his second oldest sister. It was a mystery, but in the end, Lincoln couldn't really complain. He took a look at the kiddie table. Lucy and Lisa were starting a food war between them. Lily was peacefully eating, making noise with a spoon. The twins were still arguing. It was clearly not the quietest environment.
What do you say?
Lenny insisted. Yeah, why not? He finally said, smiling at her. Judging by their faces, one could have believed that Lincoln's older sisters had just found out Christmas was coming earlier this year. They walked with him to the grown-up table. In the living room, with the most sincere smiles he remembered seeing in them in a long time. When he sat down, he noticed that Lynn immediately sat down right next to him, and Lenny was occupying the seat on the other side of him. Luna and Luann sat together, still very close, and Laurie chose to be right in front of Lincoln, on the other side of the table. You really don't have to eat them if you don't want to, said Lynn, distrusting her own hotcakes. Are you kidding? They look delicious, he said. He quickly cut a piece and tried his first mouthful of the day. They were a little crispy, yes, but they actually tasted better than he had expected. Lynn, these are really shit. These are really good. His sister's face warmed up. Really? You don't have to lie to me, you know. No, seriously, these are great. Is this really the first time you cooked this? Yes. Yeah, it was my first time, she answered, quickly blushing. Kuddos? Kuddos? What's a kuddo? They're kuddos, then. They are really good. Lynn grabbed her cup of coffee and took it to her mouth. It wasn't easy to drink with a smile from ear to ear, but she managed to avoid spilling anything.
Lincoln, you didn't brush your hair, did you?
Asked Lenny, frowning at his hair. No, I didn't go to the bathroom yet, Lincoln answered. Don't worry, I got this, she said with a smile. He thought she would take a comb out of her dress. He'd seen his sisters taking stranger things out of their clothes. But Lenny simply started to use his fingers to comb his hair. She started to accommodate his white locks without tugging or pulling, and without causing him any pain. Lincoln actually found himself enjoying that sort of massage. Those soft and tender caresses with which his sister was combing his hair. So, Dad's tent? Asked Luann, staring at Luna. Yeah, although you know, she said, lowering her voice to a whisper so she couldn't be heard from the kitchen. It was all Lincoln's idea. I figured so, she added, smiling a little.
And did you talk things out?
Yeah, we had a talk, Luna said, sadly looking at her cup of coffee. I really needed one. Luann put a hand over Luna's, gently stroking it. Lincoln knows how to give good talks, she simply said, and they both turned their heads to look at their brother. They were giving him full of sadness and nostalgic. Nostalgic what? Which made him feel a little uncomfortable. He tried to smile to relieve the tension, but he forgot he was eating his hotcakes. So when he parted his lips, a bit of the mass fell from his mouth over his pyjama. All his sisters started to laugh after seeing that. Lincoln thought that an embarrassing act was worth seeing all his sisters laughing, even if they were laughing at him and not with him. Well, I sure hope Lincoln's talk helped you understand that we all love you, Luna, she said, laughing at the end. Get it? No. Lincoln, Lynn and Laurie let out some groans, but the smile on their faces showed that they were happy to hear their sister's puns once again. Luna did let out a small chuckle, looking fondly at his younger sister. And then she turned her head to look at Laurie, this time looking at her with much regret. Laurie, I'm sorry. Sorry for all those things I said. It's okay, Luna. Laurie interrupted her. I was wrong too. No, it was all my fault. I made some terrible decisions, Luna said, getting ready to cry at any moment. Laurie made sure that none of their younger siblings were interested in what was going on in the dining room. Stood up and got closer to Luna. She didn't waste a second in standing up to throw herself at her older sister's arms. They embraced each other, Laurie gently stroking his again, little sister's back. Luna, it's okay, I forgive you, she told her. Really, I was just worried sick. I promise I won't do that again. At least until you're 18, added Laurie, breaking away from her sister. Luna laughed a little, and after wiping her tears, after wiping her eyes with the back of his hand. Whose hand? She sat once again next to Luan, while Laurie got back to her seat and asked Lincoln about his hotcakes, earning a rough warning from Lynn to avoid making fun of her cooking abilities. Lincoln felt extremely happy. All his older sisters were in that table with him, and they were all smiling. Luna and Luan were having a nice joyful chat, holding hands the entire time. Laurie was smiling as she teased Lynn, asking her if she was planning on joining the middle school cooking team. And the sports girl aggressively snapped back that if she wanted, she could totally win the cooking Super Bowl. That no gold was beyond her if she really tried. Meanwhile, Lenny was still stroking Lincoln's hair. Still, even though he was pretty sure that he didn't need to be combed anymore, she was still playing with locks of his hair, humming a random melody. In his 11 years of life, he'd never paid much attention to breakfast. He was usually pretty drowsy in the mornings, and having breakfast was just another thing in the routine, like brushing his teeth, something he didn't stop to think about it. That morning, though, he dedicated a lot of time just to see his sisters having breakfast on the table, to see them laugh, to see them playfully teasing each other, to enjoy the contact between them, to enjoy the shared time. As he finished his second hotcake, Lincoln wished he had learnt to enjoy his breakfast along his sisters before. The noise coming from the kitchen, where the kiddie table was, had been gradually increasing since the older sisters had walked to the dining room. It wasn't till they heard the sound of shattered glass that they forced to intervene. They all stood up and went into the kitchen. Lisa, Lucy, and Lily were staring open-mouthed at the twins, who were facing each other separated only by a few inches, screaming right in each other's faces. There was a broken glass of milk on the floor.
You always ruin everything. Everything always has to go the way you want it to. Would it kill you to have some class? Is it so hard for you to share? I'm telling Mom you broke the glass. Well, I'll tell her you broke a glass.
Enough!
Yelled Laurie, while Lynn and Luna separated the twins.
What happened?
I grabbed the milk carton first,
said both girls at the same time, looking at each other with hatred and mistrust. Oh my god, did you literally fight over who was getting a glass of milk first?
It was her fault,
they both yelled. Come on, you guys, you can't fight for everything. Oh, tenderly said Lenny, crouching down. She tried to make them look at each other, but Lana broke free from Luna's arms. That's it.
I'm not having breakfast with her.
Before even Lynn could react, which was quite a feat. Lana ran through her siblings' legs, damn, straight to the first floor. They were all stunned for a few seconds. Then, like it was usual, Laurie reacted first. Lynn, Luna, come with me. Let's go talk with her. Lenny, Luann, you stay here with Lola. Should we raise the threat level to thunderstorm? Asked Lisa, referring to the sister fights protocol. Negative. This is not going protocol level. We'll end this before it gets there, said Laurie, finally marching off with the two designated sisters to speak with Lana. The tension on the air could be cut with a butter knife. Lola was sitting in her chair, arms folded, apparently having lost her appetite. Lucy and Lisa were having turns at looking at each other and staring at the young blonde, whom simply had her eyes fixed on a plate. Lincoln couldn't help but feel guilty. If he told his sisters that, they'd all surely try to tell him that he shouldn't blame himself, that it wasn't his fault at all, but Lincoln was convinced that he had a part of the guilt. Lana and Lola were always fighting, like you could expect from the twins with such different personalities. However, those fights were always in somewhat a playful way. They'd never had so serious fights in such a short time. Lincoln was pretty sure that the sudden animosity between them wasn't casual. It was clear for him that it had started ever since Lincoln had been taken to the hospital exactly 1 week ago. It wasn't the first time that the girls acted different because of a general grieving air in that house. In other occasions, like when their father had a hernia operation or when Lynn had broken one of her elbows, the twins responded to the general grief by having more and more fights. It was their way of relieving the tension. Evidently, they felt something was off in the house, but they were too young and innocent to realise what. Feeling responsible for what was happening, Lincoln was determined to fix things between his younger sisters. Lenny was kneeling beside Lola, trying to talk some sense into her, but the younger one didn't want to listen to her. Luann had brought a mop and was cleaning the mess on the floor. Dodging her, Lincoln went next to Lola. Hey, he called her, kneeling on the floor to be on eye level with her. Lola was still crossing her arms, not looking at him. Lola, look at me, he softly asked her. She was extremely authoritarian. She wasn't just as pretty as a princess. She also lived like she would have to take the kingdom's throne one day, constantly practicing her air of superiority and bossy attitude. She didn't like receiving orders from anyone, and let only a few members of the family to give them orders. She obeyed her parents, but because she had to, and because deep down she knew they only wanted the best for her. She obeyed Laurie because she respected her leadership. And finally she obeyed Lincoln because she loved him, and because she trusted him. He was more than just her big brother. He was someone she actually looked up to. She would never admit it out loud, but even though he had the gross habit of reading comics in his underwear around the house, Lola really admired him in more than one way. Thus, when he asked ever so gently to look at him, she did. You're on her side, aren't you? She asked, putting it and frowning at the same time. What? You think it was all my fault, and you're with Lana, don't you? She repeated. Lincoln was confused. Lola, what are you talking about? He asked, not believing what he was hearing.
What you heard 2 days ago. You went to the plant trees with Lana and you left me alone. And now that we're fighting again, you come here to nag me and tell me it was all my fault because you love her more.
Lincoln's brain finally understood what was going on. His little sister was jealous.
Lola, you know that's not true,
intervened Luan.
Lincoln?
Oh.
Lincoln doesn't love Lana more than you. He doesn't have a favourite sister,
added Lenny with a smile, although it hesitated for a second as she looked back at Lincoln.
Right?
He couldn't help but smile. Of course I don't. You're all special to me, and I love you all the same. You, for example, he said, poking her nose with his index finger. You are my special little princess. And you'll always be, Lola. Always. Little princess. My princess. The tough expression on the girl softened after those words. She was having problems looking Lincoln in the eye, and she suddenly seemed to be interested in the kitchen floors. Now, what do you say if we go so you can apologise with Lana, alright? Lincoln suggested.
But it wasn't entirely my fault,
she replied, lacking conviction. I'm not saying it was. I'm not blaming you. I'm pretty sure you were both equally responsible. You just apologised for your part, and I'll make sure she apologises for hers. I'll go with you. Do you agree? He offered her his hands. She looked at it, then at his eyes, and then at his hand again. Her lips insinuated the smallest smile, but Lincoln detected it right away. She put her hand over his, let him grab it, and allowed Lincoln to help her stand up. Not being able to resist the impulse, she hugged Lincoln's legs as he gently stroked her hair. Lucy and Lisa were watching the scene with interest. Lily was just drooling on her food, and Luan and Lenny wanted to smile and cry at the same time. Lincoln and Lola, holding hands, walked straight to the twins' bedroom, but they stopped in the dining room where they saw Laurie coming down from the stairs, with Lola by a hand. Luna and Lynn appeared behind them. The oldest and the only boy in the family exchanged a smile. Seeing their twin getting closer, they both hid behind their older sibling's legs. But when they were just 4 feet away from each other, there was no point trying to hide themselves. I think you both have something to say, Laurie said. Ah. Lana looked at Laurie, and Lola looked at Lincoln. He nodded and tightened his grip on her hand. The twins sighed, and staring at the floor, they said it at the same time.
I'm sorry.
They didn't seem to be really sorry, actually, but they were at least trying to make things up between them. And the other 9 siblings smiled at the scene.
Oh, great, you're all here.
Mr. Lynn walked from the living room to the dining room. He was smiling from ear to ear, and they all noticed that he wasn't wearing his usual green sweater and brown pants. Instead, he was wearing some shorts that showed his hairy legs, and an aquamarine short-sleeved shirt. It was a nice morning, no doubt about that. But it was weird to see him dressed like that. How are you, kids? Had breakfast yet? He asked in a really good mood. His 11 children remained silent. I'll take that as a yes. Well, Lincoln, you better go to your room and dress up. Why? We're going to the Museum of Natural Science. You like coins, don't you? I read there's an exposition of old drachmas and obols from the ancient Greek. It'll be fun. Collecting coins was a wonderful hobby. The story of coins was a story as interesting as any Ace-savvy issue. I actually kind of miss Ace-savvy. Now we're on to David Steele, which, in my opinion, is a bit more boring. Wait, Every time Lincoln shared his passion for coins, people would stare at him, judging him without knowing. He hadn't cared. He enjoyed doing what he loved. And other time, he would have been delighted to be able to go with his father to a museum and see coins over 2,500 years old. But was it worth it to lose an afternoon with his sisters just to see some stupid coins? What good did it have to appreciate the texture, size and inscriptions on a metal from millennia ago? His bucket list had nothing related to his coin collection, and it was actually cramped with a lot of unmarked boxes about things related to his sisters, family and friends. His priorities had suddenly changed. Now he would give all his hobbies away just for one more breakfast with his family. Dad, I don't know if it's a good idea. Son, go change your clothes, will ya? His father's smile didn't hesitate at all, but Lincoln felt the change of tone. It was clear that there was no other option. Aye, okay. Defeated, he climbed the stairs all the way to his room, with his mind somewhere else. He bumped his face against the door where he tried to open it and didn't move. Annoyed, he looked inside his pocket and grabbed the key. He still wasn't used to having a key. Once inside, the first thing he did was cross the Saturday off, and with that, the first of the 2 weeks he had left had already ended. He started to shiver when he saw how many days there were left. 1 week, 7 days, only 7 days. Just out of pure curiosity, does Lincoln actually die in this? Or is there actually a cure? He didn't want to think about that. He took his pyjamas off and dressed up as fast as he could. He wanted to get away from there, to go and get distracted with his dad. He practically ran away from his room, closing the door with a bang as he dashed downstairs. The entry door was opened, and he heard the sound of one of Van Zilla's door being closed. As he walked to the door, he looked at both sides of the hall. At his left, Laurie and Lenny were still finishing their breakfast at the table. His younger sisters seemed to be in the kitchen, eating too. At his right, Luna, Luann and Lynn were sitting on the couch, with the TV turned on, although none of them looked especially interested in what was going on. Closing the entry door behind him, Lincoln felt a little bummed out about his sister's sudden change in mood. He got in the van on the passenger seat, put on his seatbelt and waited for his father to turn on the engine. "Are we really going to the museum?" he asked him. He didn't doubt his father would thought that would cheer him up, but it was really hard to imagine him deciding that was the perfect way to spend what could be his last Sunday. "Of course not," answered Mr. Lynn, finally turning in the van. "I said that so none of the girls would like to come with us," said Lincoln, completely surprised. "Where are we going then?" Van Zilla left the driveway and headed down the street, away from the museum. "We're going fishing, son." Not Dairyland or something? The 50 minutes drive to Silver Lake. Oh, okay. The most famous lake in Royal Woods. Passed incredibly fast for Lincoln. At first, neither he nor his father spoke a lot, with the latter asking him trivial questions about breakfast, traffic, and even reaching the awkward point of talking about the weather. Lincoln answered the best he could, but he was having trouble feeling comfortable. It wasn't easy to talk when they both knew there was a more important and evident conversation that neither one wanted to start. Luckily, his father changed the radio station, and there was a song singing, one they both immediately recognized, although their opinions about it were polar opposites. "Oh dear God, what have they done?" Indignantly complained Lynn Sr. How dare they profane this way? Life is a highway. Life is a highway. Tom Cotrane's best song. This song had a soul, you know. How dare they turn it into some pop record just like that? I like this song, said Lincoln with a smile. It's on cars where Lightning McQueen is with his truck buddy in the road and they're driving the interstate highway. I don't know if this is the song I'm thinking of. Are there more than one different types of Life is a Highway song? I just know one of them. Of course you like it, it's a great song, but if you knew the original then you'd prefer it. Even so, this one's really good, he said, turning up the volume. A couple of years ago, Luna found me listening to it in my room, and when I told her I really liked it, she learned it in like half an hour on a guitar. We went to the garage and spent the whole afternoon singing it. His father smiled at his son's enthusiasm, whom had started to move his head to the rhythm. Lynn had his own motives to always prefer Tom Cotrane, but deep down he had to give it to Lincoln. It was an awesome cover. Before any of the two could realise it, they were both singing the chorus out loud. Life is a highway, I want to ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I want to drive it all night long. They both do the lyrics, so they had fun taking turns to sing each other's verse. When the song ended, father and son were laughing out loud in front seat of the van. Well, it wasn't that bad after all, said Lincoln. I gotta admit, it was pretty good, conceded Lynn. No one could top Miss Tom Cotrane, though. Who's that guy, anyway? His father gave him a look of fake disgust. These kids nowadays, they don't know the legends. A great musician, that's it. For your information, your sister Lynn is named after him. What? No, he isn't. She's Lynn. Oh my, I can't speak. No, she isn't. She's named after you. What? Asked Lynn, staring at him without understanding, believing that it was maybe one of his dumb jokes. How could you be named after a guy named Tom? He was born in Lynn Lake, a Canadian city. Hearing no responses from his son, Lynn Sr. turned to look at him, finding a surprised and shocked face. What? I'm serious. Why did you think she was named like that? Oh, I don't know, Lincoln, the sarcasm in his words painfully evident. I had this crazy idea she was named after her own father. Yeah, exactly. Lynn Sr. let out a chuckle. Oh, Lincoln, do you think your mother would have let me named her like that if it wasn't because she was also a big fan of good old Tom? It wasn't that hard to make her mind, especially since... Oh wait, this is another great song. The station put on another classic 80s song that Mr. Loud had danced in his younger years, and that Lincoln knew thanks to Luna. They started to sing once again, and then they sang the next song, and then the next one. I don't get people who can sing for a long time. Doesn't your voice get tired? Or is that just me? Actually, to be fair, I've been reading this for several minutes and I'm not really that tired. So, yeah, okay. Never mind. I stand corrected. Michigan is known as the Great Lakes State. Michigan is known as the Great Lakes State. It limits with 4 of North America's 5 Great Lakes, which makes him one of the most beautiful states in the US. A wonderful place to visit and appreciate the nature. Lincoln, in theory, knew these things. They taught him in school. He heard it from his parents and he'd seen images in the internet and movies. He knew that he lived in a state with nature, wonders like Grand Venture Canyon, But it wasn't until he stood in the bank of the Silver Lake that he was fully conscious of that fact. His father had been driving by the highway until he'd reached a small, signless road that led inside a forest. He drove for a few more minutes until the trees were opening up and they finally reached the lake. It was enormous. Standing near the bank, Lincoln calculated there had to be at least 250 yards to the other shore. Not only could he see the beautiful image of the water reflecting all the trees surrounding it and the blue sky, he could also appreciate the silhouette of the mountains standing proud in the horizon. Lincoln just stood there, contemplating the view. Had he known something so beautiful like what he was seeing existed so close to his house, he would have made an objective to his bucket list to visit it. The lake was so beautiful, so mirrored. He couldn't resist the temptation. He grabbed the flattest stone he found and threw it with all his strength. It skipped 5 times on the water surface before it finally sank. Lincoln closed his fist in the air, satisfied with his throwing skills. Lynn would have been completely jealous. "Lincoln, are you trying to scare all the fish away? Get here and help me unload the van." Lincoln did as his father told him, in the back seat, covered by a blanket, so the girls wouldn't accidentally spot it. Lincoln found all the fishing stuff he'd seen in the garage the previous afternoon. His father grabbed the fishing rod, a bag with some clothes, and a cooler filled with baits and their lunches. Lincoln, meanwhile, took the 2 folding chairs that were there, and with some difficulty carried them near the bank. "Actually, Lincoln," his father suggested, putting things in the ground, "why don't you put the chairs in the water? There's nothing like fishing with the feeling of the lake in your ankles." Smiling at the idea, Lincoln took out his shoes, his socks, folded up his jeans, and did as he was told. The water was cold, but it felt nice to step on the wet clay. His father handed him a hat to protect his face from the sun, and a fishing vest just for the sake of aesthetics. Then they both grabbed a fishing rod, and only a few minutes after getting to the lake, father and son were casting their lines as far as they could. "So what now?" asked Lincoln with a smile. "Now we wait." Lincoln nodded. He knew there wasn't much to do now that the bait was on the lake. Fishing was the sport of patience. "Hey, Dad?" "Yes?" "Was it true that the thing you said about Lynn, did you really name her like that because it was the city where that singer was born in?" "Absolutely," answered Lynn Sr., as he made a little movement with his rod to adjust the line tension. "I mean, obviously there was also the fact that she would be named after me, but you see, he's not just a favourite singer of your mother and me. It was also his music that was playing when..." Lynn cleared his throat and wasted some time needlessly adjusting some bait ornaments on his hand. "Well, let's just say he was very involved in Lynn Jr.'s conception." "Dad!" complained as he laughed, moving his feet to sprinkle his father. "TMI." "Well, you asked me." They started to laugh. A real fisherman would have been indignant with all the noise that they were making, but neither lad was actually worried about it. "And how did you all choose out names? I mean, why do all our names start with L?" Lincoln asked curiously. "Well, they all had the same initials. Was a mystery between the Loud children. and they'd never dare to ask their parents about it. That's a really good question, son. It's in your right to not believe me, but the truth is, it's not something we did on purpose. We had our own reasons to name you all the way we did. Some of the reasons may have more sense than others. Some are more important, but we always have a motive to name you like we did. And what were they? Well, let's start from the beginning. Laurie is the name of an old friend of mine who gave me the 12th best gift I received in my whole life. The 12th? Raising an eyebrow. She introduced me to your mother. He simply said, "Damn!" He simply answered. She moved away to another state some years after introducing us, and eventually we stopped being in touch with her. But, well, your mother and I were together for about 3.5 years, and then we had a fight. A very serious fight. Lincoln's smile left his face. "You and Mom had a fight?" he asked. "Yes, it was nonsense, really. I can't even remember what we fought about in the first place. But we were young and suspectable, and I decided to break up with her," he sadly said. His eyes lost in the reflection of the mountains on the surface of the lake. Lincoln gasped. "You broke up with her? But how? How did you make up with her? Laurie?" "She came back from the other state." No, Laurie, your sister," he explained. "Your mother was pregnant." "Well, I don't think this happened in the Loud House movie. Your mother was pregnant when she found out. She didn't want to tell me at first, but we finally met up for a talk and she told me. And well, we weren't in the best terms, you know. But it was our child. It wasn't just about us anymore. We had to think about what was best for our child. So we put aside our differences and we tried to form a family once again. By the time our daughter was born, Rita and I were back in love. And we realised that we were back together thanks to the baby. She had brought us together again, and we decided to name her after the old friend who presented us in the first place, so we could all remember that it was thanks to her that we were happy together." "Wow," said Lincoln, raising his eyebrows and letting out a small whistle. I'd never had guessed that you'd been that close of breaking up. But destiny wanted us to make a family," he said, calming him down, "and boy did we comply." "Well, clearly you don't know what a condom is." The boy with the orange polo chuckled. "What about the rest? Why, Lenny?" "Oh, that's one story we don't like to tell," he answered, shaking his head. "See, Lincoln, she had some troubles during pregnancy." "Troubles?" "Well, Lenny was born a month ahead of schedule. It wasn't really that bad. The hospital was very well prepared. But we were still new parents. Laurie was born less than a year prior. And to see our little girl in an incubator, it wasn't easy. We were really scared. And then during our second night in the hospital after the birth, a nurse came to see us. She looked like a prison cook. Lincoln, I swear, her arms were bigger than my legs. At first I thought she was going to hit me, but she didn't. She sat with us for hours, letting us know that it was all going to be okay, soothing Rita. She even cradled little Laurie to sleep. We were really scared, and that wonderful nurse helped us." He made a small pause, during which his smile came back, and he turned around to see Lincoln. "Can you guess how was that beautiful lady called?" "Lenny," said Lincoln, suddenly understanding. His dad nodded, and they both smiled in silence for a few seconds. "The rest of the names don't have such sad stories," he assured him. "When your mother was pregnant of our third daughter, there was a night where we went for a walk in the park. Taking Laurie and Lenny on their double carriage. We were just thinking how to call this new girl, when we stopped to stare at the sky. The stars were sparkling that night, and there was a full moon. It was beautiful. the most amazing view we'd had in a long time. Then we started to think about a name that could be as pretty as that image. We thought about Star, Pearl, but in the end we decided to call her Luna, which means moon in Spanish. What about Luan? Asked Lincoln, fascinated for being able to discover such interesting information about his family's past. Why did you choose that name? That's a funny story, said Lynn Sr., giggling a little, which is ironic. So, when your mother was going through our fourth daughter, Laurie was about to turn 3 years old. We were trying to teach her how to pronounce all the family names. But there was no way we could make her say Luna properly. She kept saying Luan for some reason. Don't ask me why, she just did. And then he had to stop for a few seconds so he could laugh. Okay, so hear this. I thought it'd be hilarious if we called our new baby Luan, just to confuse little Laurie a bit more. And boy, not only Laurie, all of you had always had trouble learning to distinguish between Luna and Luan. Lincoln shook his head, smiling from ear to ear. You're lying. No, I'm serious, son. And Mum agreed to this. Turned out she had a sense of humour after all. Alright, let's just say that, for now, I believe you, said Lincoln, with a smile and a tone that hinted that he wasn't really buying that story. You already told me why you chose Lynn's name, and then, of course, you were waiting for this moment. Well, as you know, after Lynn Jr.'s birth, it was a while before we decided to have you. You said it like it was a big deal, but I think it's normal for any family to. The thing is, his father interrupted him, that we decided to have another baby, and when the doctor told us it was a boy, look, the truth is I lost any hope for ever having a boy in the family by now. I'm not complaining. I love all my little girls. You gather the best 11 gifts life has ever given me, and you always will be. But when I knew I'd be having a boy, I decided I could name him lightly. I couldn't name him lightly, sorry. I always knew you were going to be an extraordinary kid. I knew it right from the start. That's why I decided that you would be called after the best man this wonderful country has given to humanity. I can't speak. The best man this wonderful country has given to humanity, after the United States' greatest president. Oh, so am I named after Abraham Lincoln after all? He said, slightly disappointed. His friends always had that theory about his name, and it's not like he was bothered by it. But ever such interesting stories around the election of his sisters' names, Lincoln was expecting something a bit more interesting. Lincoln, I'm really sorry if you don't like your name, said his father, downhearted. These are risks every parent must take. We never know if our kids will like their names we impose on them. But you need to know that I named you the way because ever since I saw you on our first ultrasound, I knew you were destined to big things. Maybe you won't be the president, and maybe you won't change the whole world, but you've changed our family forever. Lynn stopped his explanation, saying something I'd take in the bait. He stood up and Oh my, I can't speak anymore. He stood up and started to move his fishing rod. But Lincoln knew that no fish had ever been close to touch the bait. He didn't complain though, since the pause also helped him to keep emotions under control. Dang it, I think it escaped, said Lynn, lacking conviction as he cast his lines again. So what about the other names? Skipping any discussion about Lincoln, his dad told him the origin of the younger siblings. He told that Lucy's name was after the famous song that put her in the sky with some diamonds around her. A song that was playing the radio on a night during Rita's 7th pregnancy, and that Luna had taught the rest of her siblings. The whole family could sing it along. Mr. Loud also told him that Lola had been the nickname with which everything knew Lincoln's paternal grandma, and that Lana had been his material grandmother, Pop's wife. Lisa had been named after one of Rita's old friends, who had helped getting into college, and finally Lily was named after Harry Potter's mum. "Since when did you like Harry Potter?" asked Lincoln, between chuckles, not believing what he just heard. "So, son, you were just a baby, so you don't remember this, but I spent 20 hours in a line dressed as Sirius Black to get my signed copy of the Delphi Hallows on its release day. I was really into naming our 11th kid Emma, after the actress, but, well, remember when I told you that we hadn't chose all your names starting with L on purpose? Well, I think we ended up choosing Lily because it certainly fitted the rest of you." "Wow, it's amazing. I can't believe I didn't know anything about this." "None of you ever came to ask about it," simply said Mr. Loud. "I'm not judging you. It's just that we all live so rushed nowadays. We have so many things to do that we just don't stop to simply talk, you know. I mean, when was the last time we had a true father and son bonding moment, eh?" "I think that, yeah. When you taught me to prepare your special linguine." "Oh, you mean my linguine?" he said, laughing at the same way Luann did after one of her puns. Lincoln, in response, let out a frustrated groan like he always did with Luann. "Son," his father started, with a phase lost in the horizon. I know I'm your father, and that my job is to take care of you. Teach you all I know, and make sure you don't set the house on fire. But just for today, do you think we could just be friends?" "What do you mean?" asked Lincoln, a bit distracted by a flock of birds that started to fly away from the treetops on the other side of the lake. "I mean, I want to know you, son." Lincoln completely forgot about the birds and focused attention on his father. "Dad? I just want to know more about you. What's your favourite colour? What's your favourite band? Was there any sport you would have liked to practice and you didn't tell us? Or you tell us and we didn't let you? What's the deal with that A Savvy you like so much? I just want to know you better. I want to know more about my little champ." He resignedly said. Lincoln thought about the talk he had with his sister Lynn just 2 days ago. She was one of the siblings he spent the most time with, and yet there was a lot of things he didn't know about her. Living under the same roof made them family, made them close, but that wasn't enough to really know someone. "Orange," said Lincoln, as he slowly moved his bare feet on the water. His father stared at him. "My favourite colour is orange," he explained him. "I think it's always been like that, and Smooch is my favourite band. Luna was always showing me their songs, and I think they are my favourite band ever." "Tell me more," asked Lynn, so focused on his son that he didn't realise that there was something in the lake pulling his bait. His father asked him to tell him more, and Lincoln complied. He told him about all his likes and hobbies, and how Bobby made him love monster trucks rallies. He told him about his favourite novels. He also took a whole hour to explain his father the main arcs from A Savvy, including Crisis of the Infinite. Okay. While they ate, his dad asked him if there was any girls that he liked. A little flustered, Lincoln told him about how much he liked Christina at first, and then he told him that right now all he's interested in the opposite genre was centered in Ronnie N. He told his dad how their relationship has evolved, from their first and failed kiss to their double date in Jean Juan's. He took his time to explain in detail all the things he felt when he was with her, about the sensation of feeling he could be his true self without being judged. Wow, son, I would have never guessed you could have such deep thoughts at such a young age, said his father, fully impressed. When I was your age, I wasn't interested in girls yet. I still thought of them as weird things of nature. It's not something I usually talk about, Lincoln admitted. I haven't even told Clyde these things yet. I never thought I'd be discussing them with my dad. I get it. I didn't talk much about my life with your grandpa. My father was, well, he had been raised in a different time. Things were different back then. He was a very strict man with very clear values. He was dedicated to his work, and family usually came after that. He didn't love you? Asked a worried Lincoln. Of course he did. My father loved me. It's just that he wasn't very fond of showing it, you know. He never liked my jokes, or that I loved dancing so much. He wasn't the kind of father that read my stories to fall asleep at night, or went to see me at school plays. That's not right, said Lincoln, frowning. Dads are supposed to be there with their kids. You need to show them their love, just like you and Mum do with us. Lincoln, I don't want you to have a bad image of your grandfather. He woke up every day at 6 in the morning and got back home at 8 in the evening. He had to drop school when he was only 10 so he could go to the factory to work with his father, my grandpa. He worked his entire life to make sure that we would have food in our plates every day, and so I could finish my studies and not repeat his steps. Lynn closed his eyes and let out a shy smile, reminiscing about prior times. When I finished high school, he asked for a day off at work so he could attend my graduation. He hadn't told me he would, he simply appeared there. I'd never been so happy in my life, and neither had he. That was the same day that he gave me my first car, Vanzilla. He told me I'd earned it. And when your mother and I moved together, our house was unfinished. It needed a lot of work to be done. Your grandfather spent his life saving so he could buy everything we needed to finish it. Really? Yeah, it's a pity he died so soon. What if I told you that that's not the case? Okay, I know this was set back in season 1, or maybe season 2. But yeah, in the modern seasons, Lynn actually does have a dad. Who's like a pirate, I think. Luan wasn't even born yet. I know that he would love to meet the rest of you, and he would have loved to be here with us right now. He always brought me here for fishing. I loved spending those afternoons with him. Lincoln felt a void in his chest. He'd never been this close, this personal with his father, and there were so many things we would have liked to ask him. So many things he wanted to know, but primarily there was a question he didn't dare ask. He didn't want to ruin the moment. He didn't want that nice talk to turn into an awkward or sad moment. Still, Lincoln wanted so much to ask him if, so many years after his father's death, after losing a loved one, if he still found himself thinking about him, if he still missed him. He wanted to know if someone could ever completely move on over such a loss. He wanted to ask him that, but couldn't gather enough courage. You really loved him then? He asked instead. Of course, Lincoln. He was there when I needed him. He was the best father he could manage to be. And God knows I didn't make it any easier for him. I wasn't exactly an angel. Those words reminded him of an item of his objective list. Dad, tell me. There's something I need to tell you. What is it? Lincoln took a deep breath, prepared himself, and finally said, I broke your disco ball. I was playing with my remote control plane, and I couldn't dodge it, and it blew into millions of pieces. I should have told you. I should have told you, but I was afraid of being punished, and then Lola took the blame because she wanted to earn our trust, and Son, he stopped him. Take it easy. No, Dad, I lied. I didn't tell you the truth. And then I let you guys ground her for things she hadn't even done. But it doesn't matter. But do you really think I could be angry with you right now just because you broke a stupid award? I guess not. Of course not. It doesn't matter anymore, son. I appreciate you telling me the truth, though. Lincoln wasn't fully convinced about his father's words. He still felt bad. Speaking of breaking stuff, said Lynn Sr., what happened today at breakfast? Oh yeah, that. He summarized the best he could. Yeah, okay. Lincoln, I'm so proud of you. Your mother and me regret not having told you this sooner, but we really appreciate everything you do for your sisters. You always help us take care of the younger ones, and you make sure your older sisters don't run out of control. You don't have to thank me, he said, shrugging it off. They're my sisters. It's my job to love them and take care of them. Yes, but you do more than that, son. I don't think you realise it, but even without you knowing it, you've taken a responsibility that doesn't belong to you. You're the middle child. You're the only boy in the family full of girls. You could have been an irresponsible, selfish kid trying to survive in this chaotic family. You could have let Laurie, Lenny, or Luna try to keep everything under control. But instead, you chose to live trying to make everything easier for everyone else. And that, Lincoln, you're the son every father would wish to have. And I can't stop feeling so lucky for having had the chance to being your father. Dad, I'm sorry. I don't want to cry neither, but I got to say it. You were born in a family different from the rest, in a big family, and I love you all so much. I just want to give you the best. And sometimes I wonder if I haven't failed in that. What do you mean? I couldn't give you the best. I couldn't give you the life you deserve, he said, raising his voice and throwing his rod in the water, scaring all the fish away in the lake. After Lucy's birth, your mother had to find a new job because my wage wasn't enough. And even so, we barely have enough money. The house is falling to pieces, the car is falling to pieces. Maybe you should have worn a condom. Dad, said Lincoln, stopping him, leaving his rod aside too and leaning on his chair to be closer to his father. Don't say that. We're not, Pa. You guys always buy the things we need. Those are always second-hand stuff, Lincoln. You sleep in a closet. I like my room. It's more than that. I spent the rest of my life regretting all the things I couldn't give you, he mourned, and the pain in his voice caused a chill run down Lincoln's spine. I couldn't take you travelling to another country. I couldn't take you to those expensive conventions you always liked. A year you asked me to start going to a comic book drawing course. I didn't have the money to sign you up. I told you no. And now you won't be able to learn it. I don't care, he said, as he was being completely honest. Dad, I mean it. I don't care. I'm happy with what I have. Especially for having you guys with me. Right. Lincoln found out, how does a man who lost his son sound? It wasn't like crying with his sisters. It was different than crying with Luan or Lynn. It was even different than crying with Luna. Even though they both had cried their hearts out that night before, it was simply a different intensity, impossible to compare, impossible to ignore. A lot of time until they both could control themselves, grab their rods again and sit on the chair. It took them even more time for one of them to break the silence. Lincoln, there's something you need to know. What is it? Last Friday, after Lynn ran away from school, your mother had to go to school to talk with the principal, and she had to tell him everything. Lincoln let out a big sigh that extended more than 5 seconds. He had not wanted to think about it, but he assumed something like this might have happened. I understand. They would have expelled her. his dad explained, like he needed to justify what they'd done. We talked with that kid's family and the principal, and they understood. When they realised what was going on, some classmates confirmed that this Ryan kid had said some wrong things at the wrong time. They only suspended Lynn for 3 weeks. Lincoln nodded. They understood why you didn't go to school this past week, and we also told the principal that the rest of your sisters won't be attending school for a while, neither. No one? No. Your mother and I believe they deserve the chance of spending as much time as possible with their brother. The principal said not to worry. They will be able to reinsert themselves in school whenever they feel ready. Do you understand what this means? I think so. It said nothing else. Well, Lincoln started to think how this changed everything. I'm sorry, son, but it's about time you talk with your younger sisters. You can't keep them waiting. I know, I'll tell them tomorrow, is that okay? Of course, do you want us to help you? Thanks, but no, I want to tell them personally. It has to be me. Okay, after 10 more minutes of silence, Lynn Sr. stood up. Want to go back home? But we didn't catch any fish. I know, that was a disaster. That's why I hate fishing, added Mr. Loud in a low voice, while he grabbed his chair and carried out of the water. You hate fishing? But didn't you say you loved fishing with your dad? And also then, why did you take Lincoln with you? As he started to put away the baits and hooks, Lynn smiled at his son. Okay, so this is actually Churlo from the next day. I had to go and do something. Yeah, I've had a really busy day yesterday. And as you know, this is very time consuming. It's not really like anyone's watching till this point anyway. I don't even have much time now. I've just been dead ass busy lately. So I'll skip a bit. We haven't got long left. So yeah. Wait. Oh shit, I forgot where we're at. Okay, here we are. Van Zilla parked in the driveway at 4:30 in the afternoon. Lincoln and his father carried down all the fishing equipment and stored it where it belonged. Lincoln received the pleasant surprise of seeing that most of Luna's instruments and amps were no longer in the garage, which meant that she had taken them back to her room. He wanted to think that their talk last night had helped her realise that music was not the problem. If she understood that now, he could focus more on trying to ease the pain. His hyperactive mind started to come up with different courses of action. Yeah, okay. Alright, son, I won't bother you any more today, said Mr. Loud, closing the garage door. Dad, don't say that, hugging his father. I really love this little trip with you, thank you. No, Lincoln. Thank you. Now go have some fun doing whatever you want, okay? Alright. They broke away from the hug, and Lincoln started to walk to the house entry, where his father called him one more time. Oh, and Lincoln, anything you need, anything you want to do, you just have to ask me. Anything that's in my power to do, take it for granted. Not like he's got much of a choice. Lincoln just nodded and smiled. Thanks. Alright, he went inside the house and received by classical, loud-ass chaotic noise. A lot of movement upstairs, probably Lynn's doing. He also heard music, some drums, which could only be thanks to Luna. It seemed that things were slowly going back to normal. The question was, how long would this little piece last? Lincoln! Luann, who was sitting on the couch, quickly got up and walked closer. She hugged him, almost lifting him from the ground, but released him right away. She took half a step back, and her right hand almost unconsciously went straight to her brother's left cheek, gently stroking it, like she was just trying to make sure that she could touch him, that he was still there. Is everything okay? Did you have fun at the museum? She asked, and she wasn't trying to mess with him. She was asking with full honesty. I'm okay, Luan. I had an awesome time. I'm glad to hear that. He wanted to go to his room, at least sit down for a bit so he could process the long talk he had just had with his father. But he could see Luan struggling to come up with some way to start a conversation, to have an excuse to talk with him. So he silently waited for her to break the ice. So I was thinking about that little project we were working on, she said, almost in a whisper. Lincoln knew what she was talking about. Luan was helping her prepare something that was one of the priorities on his bucket list, barely less important than those objectives that were directly focused on helping his sisters and make them feel better. Yeah, what about it? He asked with interest. Okay, we're nearly done now. Well, I know you probably have a lot of things to do, but if you want, we could all keep making progresses today, she suggested, speaking in a kinda shy way and embarrassed way. I do have a lot of things to do, yes, but I would love to advise a little more with that, Luan, he said, making a smile. Just let me go to my room to check something. I need it, alright? Yes, definitely. I'll get everything ready. Luan ran all the way upstairs and into her room. Lincoln slowly climbed up each step. He stopped in front of his door, and he remembered the bump he had given to himself the same morning, just because he hadn't unlocked the door. Smiling, he moved his hand to his to his pants, looking for His smile faded away in an instant. He checked his other pocket, finding nothing but air and dust. And then he started to think. That morning his dad had sent him upstairs to change his clothes. He'd hit his head. He quickly dressed up and then... Oh no. He put a shaky hand on the doorknob and turned it. To his utter horror, it was unlocked. Any kind of dread he was feeling, however, was multiplied by 10 when he opened up his door more and saw, standing in front of his counter, and with his objective list in her hands, his little sister Lucy. Oh man, why do they always have to end on a cliffhanger? But, yeah, well, okay, I'm glad this part wasn't so long, because I really don't have enough time this week. But yeah, overall though, very interesting. Now, if you enjoyed, well, probably one or two people are watching till this point, because they are genuinely invested in this story. Kind of like me. But, wait. Oh. Alright, next chapter's over 50% of the way. Okay, that's good. But yeah, there's no point asking me to... well, I don't ask to subscribe anyway, because it's a bit pushy and I don't like doing that. You should only subscribe if you want to. But I feel like the only people watching till this point are already subscribed. Well, maybe. There's always a chance that they're not. But anyways, yeah. Have a great day or night whenever you're watching this. I'm Churlo. Peace.